That's really helpful. In the last few weeks, two in particular, theologians, one systematic, one very practical, were promoted to heaven, Charles Ryrie and Jerry Bridges. And I know that both those men influenced lots of men in this room. Talk about, in the spirit of Hebrews 13:7, remember those who spoke the word of God to you, who those theologians were that influenced you in those years where you were growing theologically, developing theologically, being formed theologically. Who are your big influences? Just to give the men maybe some avenues where they can access. You've mentioned some of those men. Let's talk about your most profound influences.
Well, I'll jump in just because you mentioned Charles Ryrie.
Yeah.
Many years ago, before Dallas Seminary knew what I believed about Lordship salvation, I was invited there to lecture for a week. And Dwayne Litvin was the preaching prof at that time before he left to go to Nashville and then over to Wheaton. Anyway, I came there. The kindest man I met in the entire week I was there was Charles Ryrie. Mm-hmm. The first day I met him, and he said to me, John, do you have a car? And I said, no, I don't have a car. I just kind of flew in, and I'm staying here at the school. And he said, well, here's the keys to my car. And he gave me his Ford Pinto for the week. This was Charles Ryrie. Twice that week, he had me at home in his house. His wife prepared a meal. We sat down at his own table. After I gave the opening message that week on Colossians chapter 1, where I was kind of building around, Paul said, I was made a minister. He pulled me aside and he said, you know, you showed me things in the text today that I had never seen. Thank you. That was Charles Ryrie. Wow. Just a tender-hearted, compassionate guy. Had some heartbreak toward the end of his life with his kids and even in his own marriage situation. I never knew a sweeter man. And when I wrote the Gospel According to Jesus, we met because he wanted to talk about it. And he wanted to be sure that our friendship wasn't diminished in any way by the fact that I didn't accept it. We had a very private talk about just exactly, Charles, what do you really believe? Do you believe everything in Zane Hodges' book? And I remember his answer was, no, but you know, there was really nobody on his side. And he is such a good friend. He believed some of the things in that book, admittedly. But that was Charles Ryrie, just a very kind guy. He easily deferred to people. The Ryrie Study Bible was a product of his students. His students wrote the notes, and he worked those notes over. He was a very gracious, expansive man, and he became a really good friend for two people on as extreme opposite sides of an absolutely vital issue as we were on that issue. And every time I met with him after that, he wrote even a book in answer to the book that I wrote, The Gospel According to Jesus. It was called So Great Salvation. We remained friends, and I have great love and respect for him. I remember he told me one day, I said, why, where did Hodges come up with this idea that you could be an unbelieving believer, which is what he called it. And he said, well, he had a friend that he discipled for years, and the guy had an accident and died in a condition of defecting from the faith, and that was such a heartbreak. He said, I think he tried to accommodate him with a theology. We had those kinds of intimate discussions about it. So Charles Ryrie, special place in my heart. Just a note about Jerry Bridges. I remember the last time I was with Jerry Bridges, he said to me, he said, John, he said, the only books published by navigators that I would read are mine.
There you have it. Got it. Follow up. Dr. Moeller? No, Dr. Moeller?